The idea of the environment being in crisis is very alarmist. I mean, there's no doubt that successive governments from both persuasions have done much over the last 20 or 30 years when it comes to environmental protection. Sometimes the environmental laws can be quite erroneous. So, we have done a lot towards that. To talk about one jarrah tree, though, I think is to be quite simplistic. And I have to ask the Honourable Lee McLaren whether the bees in that tree were in fact native bees or the introduced European bee. I don't know whether you worked that out or not. Well, I hazard a guess they would be the introduced European bee. But we talk about one jarrah tree. When I was down at Northcliffe about 12 or 18 months ago, there was obviously the Northcliffe Walpole fires down there. And because of the pressure from green influence over years where prescribed burning wasn't undertaken, the bark of a lot of those very old growth trees, like carriers and jarrah, had fallen around the base of the tree. Those hot wildfires ring-barked the tree, and this whole swathes of forest that is now dead. So we're not talking about one tree, we're talking about thousands of trees that are lost. And that to me is the real environmental issue when it comes to protecting our environment. We also talk about, the Honourable Lee McLaren's talked about threatened species like woylies and western ring-tailed possums. Well, of course, red foxes eat possums. There's been a lot of research done on possums when they've done biopsies on them and found out what they've been eating. Now, the Red Card for Red Fox program in Western Australia, which is currently underway, takes some 5,000 foxes out of the environment every single year from volunteer shooters. What I'd like to know is what Green supporters actually do practically to assist the environment besides protesting. What do they actually do when it comes to doing something practical about reducing the number of predators? Because most of these threatened species are threatened because of predation from introduced pests like foxes and cats, and the loss of habitat like the fires down at Northcliffe where a lot of trees have been destroyed. But you're out there shooting foxes? No, I don't quite know what you're doing with foxes out there, but they're certainly growing in numbers if you don't shoot them. I had the good fortune a couple of weeks ago to speak to a very pragmatic environmental scientist. And in his view, the problem is that we aren't looking at a balance between protecting the environment, and he was very passionate about protecting the environment, particularly the Carnaby cockatoo, but also the need of humans. We need to have a balance. We can't just be right off on one tangent saying we can't have any more development, we must protect the environment without any interference whatsoever. There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance between Honourable Lee McLaren. So, and there's obviously been criticism here about the EPA and whether they're relevant and the fact that they've had a couple of court cases where they've had some issues overturned. Well, they were highly technical legal issues that were overturned on. Not practical outcomes. No, they were procedural. They were highly technical legal reasons as to why these things have been overturned. I think the EPA has all good intention to make sure that the environment is protected. And they do serve a purpose, and they do a very, very good job. Mr President, I think I'll leave it on that point, but the bottom line is that we need to have some sensibility about this. I mean, there is greater issues than one jarrah tree. I understand a 500-year-old jarrah tree, it's a travesty to lose it, but there are huge areas. We need to have a helicopter view of what we need to do for the environment. And I would suggest that this government, as has the Labor government in the past and others, have done a hell of a lot towards protecting our environment.